Steak and potatoes, two staple ingredients in the American household, and they come together perfectly in steak frites. But have you ever wondered about their carbon footprint? Let's dive into the environmental impact behind this classic dish. Let's start with the steak.
To produce this 290-gram cut of beef we're cooking today, an Angus New York strip steak, about 45 kilograms of CO2 emissions were generated. That's the equivalent of driving almost 142 miles in a car, roughly the distance from here in Ann Arbor to Grand Rapids, Michigan, almost a 3-hour drive. And that's just the CO2 emissions. So what makes a small cut of steak so bad for the environment? According to a life cycle assessment conducted by the USDA, a major contributor is the cultivation of cow feed. In fact, the study found that across the entire beef production process, growing feed was responsible for 93% of the human toxicity potential, a metric determined by emissions, land and water use, and energy consumption. So, how can we improve the sustainability of beef? Researchers across the world are asking the same question, investigating whether seaweed or fungi could replace corn as a primary feed component. If successful, this could drastically reduce the environmental harms of raising cows.
Most of America's 44 billion pounds of potatoes come from Idaho, Washington, and Wisconsin. That's nearly 1 million acres, which is about the size of Rhode Island, dedicated to growing potatoes. The industry supports over 700,000 jobs and generates $100 billion for the U.S. economy every year. Only about a quarter of potatoes are sold fresh. The rest become frozen fries, chips, or dehydrated flakes. Processing makes potatoes more convenient, but it also uses more energy and creates more waste. Think peels, rejected spuds, and extra starch. And compared to other staples, potatoes are pretty eco-friendly. These two potatoes weighed a total of 1.69 pounds. To produce these potatoes, a total of 0.38 kilograms of CO2 was emitted, approximately 0.91 miles, which is roughly the distance of driving a loop around North Campus. That's a much smaller footprint than crops like rice or wheat. The biggest problem? Waste at home. Spoiled, forgotten, or tossed potatoes can account for up to 60% of their total emissions.
Let's talk about meat alternatives, because sustainability doesn't have to mean sacrificing flavor. Options like the Impossible Burgers and Beyond Burgers are already making waves. Beyond Burgers are made from pea protein, and according to a 2017 study by the University of Michigan, generate 90% fewer greenhouse gas emissions than traditional beef. The soy-based Impossible Burger isn't far behind, with an 89% reduction based on its own life cycle assessment. Looking for something more natural? Try lion's mane mushrooms. These fluffy, white fungi mimic the texture of meat when cooked, and they're grown with a fraction of the environmental impact. While the long-term emissions are still being studied, the technology offers a chance to build sustainability into meat production from the ground up. From plants to petri dishes and the emergence of lab-grown meat, the future of food is full of possibilities.
So what does steak frites really cost us, beyond the price on the plate? From high-emission beef production to food waste in our own kitchens, every part of this dish tells a story about our food system and its impact on the planet. But here's the good news. We're not powerless. We can work on cutting down our carbon footprint with the food choices we make, whether that is cutting down on food waste or trying out meat alternatives. Sustainability doesn't mean giving up the foods we love. It means being curious, conscious, and creative in how we eat. Thanks for joining us in cooking and thinking about steak frites. Let's keep asking questions and making choices that are better for our planet, one bite at a time.